Don't just make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, they don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Thomas Christopher, hero of the league winners. And if you missed me last week, that's because I was out with an illness. Yes, I know I played a very rough game, and I was actually not on. I was on the injury report, and I was not able to suit up. And as you can see, I came out of a hibernation as well. Got the beard going. That's going to be gone next week. But you know what's not going to be gone next week? An episode of College Football Now with the League Winners. Make sure if you're listening right now, make sure you're liking, subscribing, commenting. If you comment, live comments, we'll get right to them. I always respond. And we got the nice camera that moves anytime I move my head, so it's a nice distraction for any of our ADD listeners or viewers out there. First guest is a good friend of mine. You love him. You know him. We're going to talk some FIU football and try to get him in and out of here as quick as possible so he doesn't miss the game at Western Kentucky. It's Brandon Pokrass. Brandon, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to see that New York Jets did not kill you yet. They have not killed me either. You know, we're still going strong, you and I. But no, it's been a good week back in Florida. I was up in the Northeast for 2 weeks. Got to cover Delaware and Western Kentucky, one of the teams in tonight's FIU Western Kentucky game. Got to cover FIU UConn, the other team in tonight's FIU Western Kentucky game, and also got a chance to cover a really, really exciting Navy Temple game. We've spoke about those two teams in a little bit smaller capacity than we probably would have liked, but those are two very exciting teams for two very different reasons. And that game was fun, and fun is an understatement, to say the least.
Yeah, I could only imagine, man, seeing that Blake Horvath. I mean, we've talked about it. He needs to be in a discussion for the Heisman candidacy. Show some love to the academy schools. I mean, they're undefeated right now, still in a tough game. And listen, Temple isn't Temple of yesteryear. It's a team that is actually competing. Casey Keeler, you're familiar with him with your Jersey roots. He's turned that team around in a year. I mean, they're playing completely different, and Navy still ended up eking out a win. But a win nonetheless. And it's interesting you bring up Western Kentucky and FIU because you did get to see both of those teams before this matchup. So it's a perfect segue into what do you think about this matchup? What did you see from the teams last week, and how are you looking to put that together as kickoff just happened not long ago? How this game could potentially break down?
I mean, look, I'm not going to lie. I'm hoping that by the time I'm finished talking, that my points aren't completely moot. That would suck really bad. But look, at the end of the day, I think both teams are comparable. I think this is a very close Conference USA. I think a lot of teams are very talented, and a lot of teams can win on any given week. But when it comes to these two teams, I'll start Western Kentucky, the home team. They can sling that ball around the yard, man. Maverick McIver. The stat line didn't show it against Delaware, but you and I were both there. He was cooking. He was playing at an extremely high level. I was very impressed with the small things that he did. It's not just the big throws he hit down the field. It's not just how he operated. It's the pocket movement was crisp. He didn't look uncomfortable. He was getting through his progressions, getting through his reads, and really just keeping the offense on schedule. Without McIver in that game, Thomas, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Delaware wins by 2 scores. Like, truly wins by 2 scores.
Yeah.
And then, Katie Hutchinson looked really good at wideout. And,
great.
The run game did enough. It wasn't great, but it did enough. But this offense flows off the play of the quarterback. And that is the biggest thing for them. And then on defense, Harper Holloman, all he does get after the pass rush. All he does get after the quarterback. Really impressive. He also plays some really solid run D. And then there's some fun secondary players. A lot of guys to name. Obviously, we're not going to dive so deep into it because the game is going on this second. But, it's a talented team, but it's not an unbeatable team for FIU. And as we move into FIU, it's tough, right? Because it's all there, and we've seen that it's all there. the way that they played early in the season is where this team could be, if not even just below their overall ceiling. They have a really fun offense. They have talent in the trenches. They have a really good secondary. They can shut down opposing offenses and score with the best of them.
Right.
The problem is they're playing more undisciplined than they have been in past weeks, which is not helping things. The turnovers are up. I've been very worried with this offense because it feels like there's a lid on the passing game. It feels like K'Waun Jenkins is hesitant to throw the ball down the field. It's not that he isn't able to, it's that he's hesitant. Against Delaware fooled him a few times and caused 2 turnovers, which really swung that game. He was hesitant to push the ball down the field in that one. Against UConn, he was hesitant even more, which I was like, okay, coming off a bye week, I'm interested why this is the case, why he's hesitant to push the ball down the field. And the decision-making hasn't been as crisp. And the run game's still there. Like, Kajan Owens and Anthony Carey look really good, but the passing game just feels all out of sorts. And then you add in miscommunications on the back end because FIU's missing a Brian Blades the second, and they're missing a Shamir Sterling, and some missed tackles and bad tackling effort. And you have that UConn game, you have that Delaware game. So it's all there. It just needs to be a cleaner operation. And for me, at least when I look at this team, it starts with the quarterback play. It really does, at least from an offensive perspective. And in this game, you have to compete with Western Kentucky. If you're not able to pass the ball in this game or run your offense at a high level, I don't know how well things are going to go.
Yeah, I think that hesitancy is an important thing because, even at the FAU game in the Shula Bowl, that first quarter, we saw some hesitancy from K'Waun Jenkins, and that's why FIU found themselves in the hole they did in that first half. And then the second half comes out, he looks like a completely different player. He's playing with poise. He's playing with confidence, and the Panthers end up beating FAU in that game by double digits. And then you expected to see that transfer over into the next 2 games against Delaware and UConn. That just didn't happen with Delaware. I know there's some stuff that Manny Rojas, the defensive coordinator there, is doing. We've talked about this. He's stealing some Brian Flores schemes, so that definitely didn't help. But UConn isn't doing that to that extent. So it was surprising to see that he had those same kind of struggles there. And I think you hit a nail on the head about the quarterback because we saw Maverick MacIver at Delaware. And while that team should have lost, the only reason they stayed in it and eventually won that game was because MacIver navigated the pocket. He ran when he needed.
He did it all. He did everything.
He was throwing dimes, and honestly, that's something that FIU has to counteract. Now, as this game's going on defensively, how do you get FIU's defense to stop that Western Kentucky offense and Maverick MacIver?
2 things: get pressure, which they started to do against UConn, but the game was out of hand by the time it could have actually played a role.
Right.
And then the coverage, communication has to be better. They have all the talent. We talked about this, right? I am a big fan of the talent that FIU has in the secondary. Too many times against UConn and Delaware, there's been miscommunications and big plays have happened because of it. They're consistently getting the third down. They're consistently making things harder for opposing offenses. But it's been these miscommunications, these chunk plays, these broken plays that have really flipped games on their head. And if the offense isn't up to snuff again, the defense is just going to have to play lights out. And that boils down to communication. That boils down to how they operate and talk in the back end. And, I didn't get a chance to see the injury report ahead of the game. I will definitely keep an eye on who's on the field for FIU. But if they're without Blades and Sterling again, then it's going to fall to some of these younger guys to really step up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and I do want to give a shout out to Kevin Barrow, who's live tweeting the contest as we speak. A nice little update. We talked about K'Waun Jenkins. So far, he's looked good on the first drive with a 36-yarder and a 16-yarder to your man Alex Perry. That's good. How big of a threat do you think Perry's going to be in this matchup for FIU?
Perry's number one, and it's by a wide margin, right? He's not just this big X wide receiver in my eyes. He can get open. Right. He can attack underneath and vertically, and he's great after the catch. They just got to throw him the ball and throw him the ball accurately. And if that happens, good things are going to happen for FIU. And then it's on, Kyle McNeil and these other wideouts that FIU has, a lot of whom I'm high on, some of these younger guys, to really step up and fill those voids.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. It's also interesting. I do want to know, Conference USA is the kings of having very interesting times and dates for their football games. So I do want to ask you a little bit off topic. How do you personally feel about Tuesday night football?
Before we get to that, shout out Kevin. The availability report for the game tonight had Kyle McNeil in a boot and not dressed. So he's expected to be out. And both Braden Staten and Justin Cayenne are both out at tight end, which means freshman Jackson Verdugo is probably going to get a lot of snaps in this one. And I was very impressed with the flashes he had last week and in previous weeks, but that's going to be really important. It's going to be really important for the Panthers tonight. But to what you said, Tuesday nights are hard, right? Like, I don't really. I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this, right? I think in some cases it's great, and I think in some cases it's like, what are we doing here? I think for a conference like Conference USA, it works. I think for a conference like Conference USA, that because of all these other deals, these media deals, this is their time to shine and get the national exposure. I think it's very important. Just from a general sense, though, I think it's tough if your schedule isn't lined up correctly and you're just throwing these teams on Tuesday night. But it doesn't seem like that's what happens for this conference.
Yeah, they do try to do the best they can for them to come off buys or the week prior, like a team plays a Friday instead of a Saturday. So there's a little bit of a leeway. But man, it's a tough ask, not just for the coaches to plan that, but for the players themselves.
As we're talking, by the way, huge play for Western Kentucky off a reception and a missed tackle. So, once again, point still stands. I'm not completely dated freezing cold takes yet, but it's going to fall to this defense to not just stop the passes, but also limit the missed tackles.
Right. And to your point about Tuesdays, it's going to be interesting because actually next Tuesday, you are going to be live at FIU as they take on Kennesaw State in the Vice game. That's going to be, that's just going to be vibes. We'll also have our photographer, Stephen Bernard, there. Shout out, Stephen. But so we might not have you here because I'm pretty sure that's an 8 o'clock start, but maybe we'll get a nice live coverage of you tuning in at Pitbull Stadium. That'd be nice to see. But that's actually, I guess that's a good way to end the FIU segment as we continue to watch the game, and we'll end up monitoring that as the show goes on. But there's also another match between two Florida teams that we both cover, and we also have somebody.
I don't mean to interject. Both Blades and Sterling are back for.
They are back.
They are. Okay,
back. That's huge for them. Blades is probably their best cover corner on the team, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll be good for them. But I do have her waiting very nice and patiently in our waiting room, in our green room there. She covers the USF Bulls who take on the Florida Atlantic Owls this week. You know her, you love her, Mackenzie Neglia. Mackenzie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's a midterm season for USF, but it's also homecoming week, and there's a big game on Saturday, so a lot going on.
Oh, yeah, that's a great segue because I was just going to ask you. You were at the pressers with Alex Golish and the rest of the players that were on there today. What was the feeling like with those guys? What was the message from Coach? Because they did have a pretty big win against North Texas, and now they got to carry that momentum into homecoming and try not to get caught slipping against Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, honestly, very, very fired up, very looking to improve on what was kind of seen as, I don't want to say like taken advantage of, but things that were sloppy kind of in the UNT game, in terms of turnovers and things that costed time of possession, as well as injuries have been a really big concern. So we kind of working to improve on those things and kind of fine-tuning everything before this game.
Yeah, turnovers are going to be key, especially for both teams that both have the fastest paced offenses in college football and some of the fastest paced college. No, I'm not going to repeat that again. Anyway, I'm going to move on to Brandon, who was also at press conference, but this one was for Florida Atlantic. That's the beauty of having guys and gals on both teams and programs. Brandon, what was the vibe? I don't want to say vibes because that sounds a little off, but what was like the sentiment among head coach Zach Kittley, and I believe it was Tyler Stolsky and Easton Messer there?
Yeah, so the vibe is essentially like they're not trying to get too high or get too low on a week-to-week basis. FAU is taking this very, and we talked about this in the FIU week, and we've talked about this previously. FAU is taking this very like level-headed approach, where they're not getting too high, not getting too low. It's just another opponent, just focusing on the game, the preparation for the game, and making sure they're ready to roll, right? So big focus is on everything that USF can do, right? And they're very focused on the game plan specific stuff of it. They know the threat that Byron Brown brings to this opposing defense and what this USF offense does. They understand the pace that they're going to have to play at. Head coach Zach Kittley talked about those two things. He also talked about how important the continuity of USF's offense and defense is to their success. He mentioned obviously like the coaching and the scheme, but he also really wanted to emphasize how important that continuity is for this program. And I think FAU is going to be very prepared. I think they're going to be as prepared as possible for this game against a top 25 ranked team, a very, very good team on the year. I obviously have my questions on how they're going to do so, but this is a very locked in unit. I think FAU's been locked in the whole year. I don't think that's ever been an issue. It's more so going to come down to what are they able to do on the field? How are they able to execute? And quite frankly, can they stack up with a lot of the injuries that they have against USF? They already lost Alex Active. They lost Atkovich. Thank you. I appreciate you bailing me out there. Sorry. My fault on the pronunciation. But they already lost one of their starting offensive linemen to an injury for multiple weeks, as Zach Kittley said in the presser. He also mentioned that, not by name, but he mentioned that there's multiple other players that are 50-50 for this game. If you look at their injury report from last week, there's a lot of guys that are banged up. And, there's a lot of concern for me in these specific spots. So how it fares, I'm very interested to find out. But the one thing I'm not concerned about, and the one thing that I'm not questioning, is this team's preparation. Look at how they've responded since the FIU game. Look at how they've responded since the back half of that Memphis game. They've played clean football. They've gotten the job done. It's really a testament to a coaching staff to not let things completely fall out the window and just slide down a hill after those two types of games.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because we saw the animosity between Alex Golesh and then head coach Tom Herman after USF ended up defeating FAU because of something that Herman did. So that animosity isn't really there. The rivalry isn't really there. I know they've tried to make it happen a little bit on Twitter, but even a lot of the bigger accounts are just like, is no real rivalry there at the moment. So I wanted to ask you, Mackenzie, was there any type of sentiment from Alex Golesh that, hey, I may not dislike Zach Kittley, but boy, do I hate Florida Atlantic?
Somewhat, I guess. Yeah, I think it's kind of been among like USF. It's kind of been somewhat of like an undisclosed rivalry, so to speak, since we haven't played UCF, at least in football, for a while.
Right.
So FAU is kind of like the next step, I guess you could say. But he really was, focused on how he was, mentioning Caden Veltkamp and how the offensive unit has looked, how Zach Kittley has done a really good job with the team so far. So it'll definitely be a challenge to stack up against.
Yeah, it's interesting because these guys actually respect each other, whereas the last two times these two teams met, that wasn't necessarily the case between the two head coaches. Brandon, I want to go to you. I mean, USF is it's the power team in this one. I mean, as much as Florida Atlantic fans may not want to hear that, USF has defeated, 2 ranked teams already. They did lose to Miami, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure we all know that FAU would lose to Miami as well, if we're being realists. So going into this matchup, FAU is in a spot where they are, they are the David to USF's Goliath. Do they have the rock to sling it and potentially pull off an upset at USF's homecoming?
So I think it comes down to a lot of different things. I mean, this is a football game. This is a game between 2 teams with talent on talent on talent, as there is, huge run for FIU in this one after a turnover. Wow. Yeah, that's almost like an 80-yard run for Kajan Owens flipping the field. Kidding. So, yeah, after a Mr. Clark interception. But back to your question. Sorry. Love the interjection. This is how my brain usually works, folks. I think if FAU throws the ball the way they have over the past few weeks, they're going to score points. And look, it's just football. The pace at which these 2 teams play, both teams are going to score points. What it comes down to, though, is can the FAU offensive line hold up? Like I said, they're already down a starter, and the depth is already getting tested on this roster. Can you hold up against a defense that has gotten better and better and better every week in USF? A defense that is very elite at forcing turnovers, a defense that hits very hard. Extend that to the wideouts. Can they create separation against the secondary that has gone toe-to-toe with Florida, and in some cases has forced turnovers against Miami? Boise State was no slouch either. The run game. Does FAU have enough healthy running backs to actually have a sustainable run game? You and I both know how much of a fan I am of the FAU running backs.
Yeah.
Most teams cannot get through a game with one singular running back. That is the level at which FAU is teetering on right now, because Jamari Sands is banged up. Xavier Terrell is banged up. Outside of Caden Shields-Dutton, who looked awesome last week, and I want to emphasize looked awesome last week, very excited to see him on the field. Are they going to play Ethan Irvin, a true freshman, in a game against USF? Are they going to play a walk-on running back? This is the game where you need balance. You need a rushing attack so that a ranked opponent doesn't tee off on your quarterback. And if the run game isn't the answer, you better have the quick game, and you better have the play calls ready to get the ball out fast and get the ball in your playmaker's hands so your quarterback isn't getting teed off on. Then on the opposite side, do you have the trenches and the cornerbacks to compete with USF? Can you shut down their offense? Can you limit them and allow your offense to get the edge and to get things rolling and to put the Bulls on the back foot? I think that's what it comes down to. Trench play and competing with the skill guys. I think the quarterbacks are going to be the quarterbacks. These are two of the best in the American. They're going to do their thing. It's how everything around them shapes up that is going to really dictate this game.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit too, because I don't know if FAU's offensive line will be able to withstand the defensive pressure that USF is going to bring. We've already seen FAU have some struggles with that so far this season, and when Caden Veldkamp has gotten pressure and pressure more often than not, he has not done as well. I know he's in a hot streak right now, and I hope he continues that, just for, I don't like rooting against guys whatsoever. But at the end of the day, there's battles that take place on the field, and I don't know if FAU has the guys in the trenches in general to really cause problems for USF. And then on the back end, as you spoke about, FAU has 0 interceptions this season as a deep. They need to be, if they want to win, they have to make Byron Brown turn the ball over. Whether or not they can do that, scheme related or pressure wise, really remains to be seen. Now, Mackenzie, I didn't want to talk to you about this as well. What are you looking for on the opposite side for USF to showcase in this game? Are there any players specifically you're looking at, or are there any strategies that you think that would be best for USF against Florida Atlantic?
Ooh, I think we touched on it a little bit before, but ball protection is going to be key.
Yeah.
And probably I mean, I would say the running back room too. I think we saw Chase Garnett come in at the end of last game. He did very well. We're seeing kind of new guys with the injuries. New guys come out and showcase some stuff. So of course you don't never want anyone to get hurt.
Right.
But as it's not really in their control, but you're having a lot of guys kind of show what they can do. So I think rotating kind of who's out there on the field, and I want to say win time of possession, because that's been kind of like a struggle and something that gets brought up a lot. But trying to keep the ball under control as much as possible, probably.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's two high flying offenses that are in this game, and I mean, there's a chance if FAU struggles offensively, that I mean, with the way that the USF offense scores, if FAU goes 3 and out 2 times, I mean, it could be 21-0 in with 10 minutes to into the first quarter. That's just 10 minutes left in the first quarter rather. That's how fast that USF offense is. So I'm very interested to see how they kind of manage that, if they try to slow it down at all, and perhaps go into some of that depth in that running back room. So Mackenzie, I'm gonna stay with you right quick before I get you out of here. I ask you this every time you're on the show, so I'm gonna have to ask you again. What is your prediction for this matchup?
I'm going to give USF the upper hand on this one, but we saw when FAU came to Tampa 2 years ago. It was also a homecoming game. It was actually my first USF game I ever went to.
Oh,
And they beat the tails off of them in that one. And then they went to FAU. We know what happened there. So I think it will be interesting. I think FAU is going to put up a lot of stops against them. I think it's going to be a very versatile matchup between both teams. But I think USF is kind of on this trajectory. They have the momentum, and having this win would kind of catapult them to next week, which is a very tough matchup on the road against Memphis.
So not only is it a revenge game of sorts for homecoming for USF, defending their home turf, but it seems like our own Mackenzie Neglia wants to see some revenge of her own. Mackenzie, before I let you get out of here, is there anywhere, could you please let anybody listening or watching where they can find you for your USF coverage?
Yes, all of my USF coverage is on X at my first and last name. So I'm at Mackenzie Neglia.
Awesome, Mackenzie. Thank you so much, as always, for coming on, and look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all.
That is Mackenzie Neglia. You can find her on X/Twitter at her first and last name. That is Mackenzie, and then Neglia is Neglia. Brandon, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a very similar question of how do you think this game plays out?
I mean, we've talked about it before. I think it goes one of two ways. I'm going to lean with door number one. I think this is a closer game than people expect to start off. But I think, look, this is year 3 under Alex Golish for USF. This is still year 1 under Zach Kittley. I think you're going to see a lot of promising things in this game. I just think by the end of it, USF pulls away and wins by double digits. There's nothing against FAU. It's nothing against the talent on this team. I think the talent on this team is really good. I just think USF is nationally ranked for a reason. I think they beat the teams that they've beaten this year for a reason. North Texas looked like one of the better teams in the conference, and they hung 63 up on them, despite how the early game looked. Like, if USF avoids the turnovers, if USF avoids, the things that have caused them to start slow in games, or the things that have made things worse against a team like Charlotte, where it's just turnover after turnover. If they avoid those things and just play their game, look, it doesn't matter if it's FAU or really any other team in the American. I don't know how many teams are flat out beating them. If USF doesn't beat themselves, they're winning this football game. And quite frankly, I'm probably picking them to win the majority of their football games over the rest of the season.
Yeah, that USF just looks different under Alex Golesh. And this year, it seems like the culture that he's brought on to the team is really finally starting to hit its stride in the development of the players as well. But Brandon, before I let you out of here, bro, just let me know where they can, or let everybody know where they can find your coverage on your social media.
So I'm on Twitter at BPOC24. I'm on Instagram at BPOC24. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm going to be a bit all over the place next few weeks. So going to be in Tampa for FAU, USF, in Miami Tuesday night for FIU, Kennesaw State. Should hopefully be in Memphis for USF Memphis. And then, very excited for this one, November 1st, we got the cocktail party, Florida, Georgia. So busy stretch for me coming up. Really excited to bring coverage to there. Like I said, follow me at those social media accounts. And as always, Thomas, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother. Until next time, we will talk again soon.
Have a great one.
And that is Brandon Pokrass of the League Winners. You can find him on X/Twitter at BPOC, POK24. I'm all over the place. We're just going to ignore my gaffe of the bros nose thing that I tried and I historically failed on. That's just me if you don't know that by now. But I do have a great person in the blue room, waiting room, whatever we want to call it. He covers the FSU. See, now I got my dyslexia going. FSU, Florida State Seminoles, and he does some UCF nights, and he's starting to do some high school stuff too. Introduce my good friend, Brandon. Hey, Brandon, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm hoping the connection's better tonight. So
it's a little bit better. I also forgot to mention, make sure you guys are checking him out on the Haymaker. He hit all the props for his League Winners parlay. And did you go 4 for 4 on straights?
Yes, I did. 4 for 4.
Yeah, so that's great. What's not great are the Florida State Seminoles, who they've just been on a losing streak now, recently losing to Pitt. The Pitt Panthers, who's another team that we actually cover. Follow Jacob 23 Murray, Murray, on X Twitter for Pitt Panthers football coverage live. But they did end up losing to them despite being up at one point, then falling down, being up, and they ended up coming up short. What are your takeaways from that game, and just what are your takeaways from the team in general?
Yeah, the main takeaways, I've been talking each week in my recaps and the previews. The defense just can't consistently get pressure. I was actually looking at the box score, and they at least gave them credit for some stats, but I don't recall those happening that much in the game. They must have been like short type stats, or maybe happened all at once.
Right.
But Pitt probably could have ran away with this one in the first half, but they had a couple interceptions. And then Florida State got kind of lucky at the end of the half. Tommy Castellanos kind of just threw it up. And freshman tight end Landon Thomas came down with it in the end zone to give them the lead at half. And then in the third quarter, they kind of took control in the fourth quarter, had the ball, and then they had another costly turnover. And Pitt just, again, FSU. I will give Norvell credit. The team doesn't quit. They're down 10 with about 2 minutes to go, and they hit a big play to Makai Danzy for a touchdown, and they had a chance. Kicked another onside kick, didn't get it. Then had a chance to stop, and then they had a couple penalties, offsides that truly ended the game. They had a lot of injuries at the receiving core. But they're just not hitting those consistent big plays. I think they're trying to use too many running backs, and I just don't think Castellanos has been fully healthy since probably week 3 or week 4 when they played Kent State and he hurt his ankle. He supposedly got dinged up the first play of this game, and you could see it. He was sliding a lot on his scrambles, and he just didn't show the explosion that he normally does.
Yeah, it was very – I'm going to be honest. I was surprised that Florida State lost that game. I mean, I mean, start obviously because they were home, that helps. But Mason Heinschel is a true freshman. That's a freshman quarterback who came in, and he, like as you mentioned, he did throw 2 interceptions in that game, so he wasn't perfect. I mean, he did display, some poise, which you want to see from the kid, but at the same time, freshman guy, you have experienced players on FSU, you have experienced coaches. I mean, not that Narduzzi's not experienced in his own right, but he has a lot greater. I mean, in my opinion, he has greater flaws than Norvell does as a head coach. So I think that loss was very surprising to say the least. I mean, now they have, Florida State now takes on the Stanford Cardinal, who, I mean, and Stanford's been struggling pretty bad this season. I mean, Norvell has yet to win against an ACC team since last September. Do you think he finally breaks that streak against Stanford?
He should. If he doesn't, I don't know how you don't fire him after that game.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling.
And it's kind of been funny, seeing some of the talk between Florida State fans, either on Reddit, Twitter, all of that. Some of them want Norvell to be fired, and then they're all about jumping on the Gus bus, which I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, even though the offense is getting all these yards, there are definite limitations to what Gus Malzahn can do in the passing game. And to be totally honest, I don't know if they're going to get top level quarterback talent with, what they're doing offensively, the passing game. I don't know if it's Castellanos is struggling a little bit with. I've heard people are open, he's just not getting it to them. This week was hard with all the injuries, but apparently UCF just signed a quarterback today for the 2027 class, and apparently Gus really wanted him. So that's not a great sign that FSU is losing those kind of recruiting battles to UCF. Seeing how UCF's offense has not looked good this year, especially passing the ball, and Florida State at least has shown moments with that. So I think this game against Stanford could kind of stop the bleeding a little bit, but I think it's going to be a dogfight for Florida State to become bowl eligible if this defense doesn't improve.
That's kind of crazy to think about because they were ranked at one point, and after they beat Alabama, and everyone thought they were going to be a juggernaut, and Norvell looked great. And I mean, I like Norvell. I think, if you listen to him talk, you want to run through a brick wall for him. He's a very motivational guy. But it's so crazy to see that fall from grace where ranked team beat Alabama, and now you're just losing game after conference game after conference game. And now it's starting to become, well, can Norvell get over the hump? And, we talked about it a little bit, and you mentioned it, that fans kind of want Gus Malzahn to take over for him. I got to ask you, A, do you think that's a good idea? And B, if it's not Gus, who could you potentially see being the head coach if Florida State does move on from Norvell?
Are you talking about in season or next season?
For next season, coaching wise, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. Just looking, they have 6 games left. They have to win 3 of these. So they have to go at Stanford at night on Saturday, which I don't think will be easy. Usually when East Coast teams go to the West Coast, they don't fare well. Then they come home against a Wake Forest team that is playing much better this year. Then have to go to Clemson, get Virginia Tech at home. You would think, but I thought they should be Pitt. Then have NC State on the road and the Gators at home. So winning 3 of those, they should be able to do that, but they should have, even with the slow starts, they should have been able to beat Virginia and Pittsburgh. They should be 5-1. They had chances in both of those games they were winning. And I don't really know where Florida State turns this, and I don't know if 6 wins is enough to to have Norvell keep his job.
Not after this season. Like, you can't start out the way you did and fall flat on your face like that. I mean, that's going to be tough to overcome, but I guess the one way they can kind of overcome it is winning football games. But I guess that's a decent segue for, I guess, the next thing I want to talk to you about, and that is the UCF Knights, who, okay, so they lost pretty badly to I don't want to say pretty badly, but 20-11 to Cincinnati, who's now ranked. Now this week they host West Virginia. Cam Fancher's in at quarterback now. The game is going badly when he throws it 49 times. That's what I'm gonna say. But how did you feel about UCF's? I guess how did you feel about the team during that game, and what do you feel about them going forward if Fancher has to be the guy?
Well, I am not going to lie. I watched the whole first half, but the offense was so atrocious. I couldn't watch, and I was paying attention more to the FSU game because, they were winning. I know they were losing most of the game, but not by a lot. And Miles Montgomery only had 13 carries. I don't know why Jaden Nixon only had 2 carries, and then Stacey Gage had 6 carries. So that's 21 carries. Cam Fancher had 20 carries. A lot of that is, we've talked about this, when he doesn't see someone right away, he'll just run. There is early 4th down and 2. They had it on Cincinnati side of the field. I didn't necessarily see, but I saw someone say there were 3 open receivers, but he decided to run it and didn't come close to the first down. He did have a couple of nice throws. I will say this, UCF defense is playing pretty well. They only allowed 20 points to Cincinnati. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of sometimes when an offense can't score, the other team kind of just does what it needs to do to win the game. So I don't know if that was what's really happening in the fourth quarter. Because Brendan Sorsby didn't have a great game. He was 12 of 21 for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns. They only ran the ball for 115 yards. I think play calling is atrocious for UCF, even when Taven Jackson's been playing. Against Kansas State, the first half they were able to run all over them. It was either Kansas State or Kansas, one of the two. And then the second half, they weren't able to run it, but they just kept on running those inside zones for -3 yards every first down. The commentators were making jokes about it, that they should just go automatically to second down at 2nd and 13 because they lose 3 yards every first down.
That's bad.
All these quarterbacks are mobile. They have to find a way to get this passing game going, get players open. Before the season, this is one of the parts that I kind of was worried about was I think they have talent at receiver, but a lot of them don't have experience. Got a couple freshmen in there, got quarterbacks that, you don't really know. And it's just not going together. I thought the tight ends would have more effect, but Dylan Wade had 5 catches for 55 yards. They just get behind the stick so much with either sacks or penalties. And they're very much like FSU. They started off strong to start the season.
Yeah. And
then theirs is the opposite. They can play defense, but their offense just struggles when they can't run the ball. It's total opposites. Like I told you, I think earlier this week, if you could combine the UCF defense with the FSU offense, you might have a pretty good team. But obviously you can't do that. They fought. They had a chance at the in the fourth quarter to make it a game. It's just I think the biggest part UCF hasn't caught up with the interior lines, offense and defense in the Big 12. That's the part where I just think they get worn down in the fourth quarter.
Because they don't have the size there. So that's going to be because the rest of their schedule's, pretty difficult. They West Virginia. That's not they're not the best, but they're also not a terrible team. But then they also face, they face BYU later. They face Baylor, who's not bad. They face Texas Tech, and then they face Houston, who's not bad either. Their only real, easy-ish game on the schedule is, if you want to consider West Virginia one, but then there's Oklahoma State. I don't know. Do you think that they can? Do you think they're a bowl eligible team? Do you think that they can even muster up 6 wins if they have to deal with the offense that they have right now?
Well, the positive is they get West Virginia and Oklahoma State at home. With their defense, I think they should be able to. I think the way this team needs to look at it is they just got to fight and claw to the fourth quarter, hope they're within a possession, and that they can score at the end or score in the fourth quarter. I don't have much faith in them going to Texas Tech and winning because Texas Tech's playing really well. Same with Baylor. So it pretty much comes down to the Houston and the BYU game. They have to go to BYU, so they really need to beat Houston at home. But that's in between Baylor and Texas Tech, so they're probably going to be beat up and everything. It would have really been nice if they could have got that Kansas game because they were winning that game and it was at home.
Yeah.
I would have said before the season, if you told me that UCF could finish 5-7 and was competitive in most of their games, I think people would have been happy. But how they started this season 3-0, I don't know if they would be as happy now. It's obvious that they are at a handicap with quarterback. Even when Taven Jackson plays, it's maybe a little above average. That's why I think they're bringing in all these quarterbacks next year. They're hoping. I think this was just like kind of a stopgap year with all the transfers and everything. And they'll try because I think this team can compete. I think this team could be an 8-win team if they had better quarterback play.
The defense is strong enough. Because you said the defense is strong enough. I did want to ask you, so do you think they are going to pull out against a win against West Virginia? And if you how do you think that game shakes out?
Well, first of all, Cam Fancher can't throw the ball 49 times.
That was insane, man. When I saw that, I'm like, what is
and
going on?
It's weird because they weren't losing by I guess they were losing 17-3 at half. That still doesn't mean no one scored in the third quarter. I don't really know if they know what they're doing on offense. I know that sounds really bad. It just sometimes doesn't seem like they have plays they feel comfortable with. Well, they have the inside zone. They freaking love the inside zone. I think if I found somewhere where I could see how many times they ran that, it's probably at least 20 times a game. And Miles Montgomery is a good running back, but obviously if the defense keeps on collapsing on that, then not to do that.
Right.
So I think too UCF. Well, but they got up early on Kansas, but I think they need to get ahead early against West Virginia, get the crowd into it, make it where they can run the ball more, and Cam Fancher can have some surprises of getting the ball out and everything. It's just tough to say because as covering FAU, you've seen Fancher can make some good plays. It's just there's no consistency, and he bails on the called plays pretty quickly if he sees a running lane.
Yeah,
which it hurts them because they have some athletes that can get the ball out on the field, but it probably helps them too in that he doesn't stand in the pocket too long because their offensive line has not been great this year.
No, it hasn't, and that's Cam Fancher, if he wants to succeed, and when he does succeed, it's when he's had a good offensive line that allows him to kind of be a statue and given a lot of time to throw, and then he can run if he wants to. Normally, he hasn't had that after he's left Marshall. Now, I did want to talk about some upcoming matchups this week. Just wanted to get your opinion because, I mean, Georgia fell short this past. Now they host Ole Miss this week, who's still surging. They're ranked number 5. Do you think Ole Miss goes into Georgia and beats the Bulldogs?
I don't think so.
Do you think like the SEC is like kind of eating itself, where all these teams are very close talent wise, and it's kind of like a coin flip?
I think a bunch of the teams have pretty good defenses, can run the ball, but the only 2 teams that like consistently are good passing teams are Alabama and Tennessee. I think Ole Miss and Georgia can pass the ball well sometimes, but it's usually not for the whole game. Ty Simpson's looked a lot better, and Tennessee's been able to pass the ball. I was pretty worried about Ole Miss last week. When they barely won against Washington State, a very bad Washington State team at home. But as good of a coach as I think Lane Kiffin is, he always has one of those clunkers every year. And last year, it was kind of the Gator game. This year, I thought it was going to be Washington State, and I don't know if there's a little bit of a quarterback controversy kind of brewing, with Austin Simmons possibly. Yeah. So I've heard, split talk rumors that some people think they have to play Simmons because they paid him more. But
do you think they should because of that? Like, do you think the NIL matters that much? Or should matter that much, I guess I'll say.
I think it depends who the coach is. I think certain coaches, it doesn't matter. I don't think Kirby goes by like NIL, especially at quarterback, because we saw he kept on playing like Jake Fromm and Stetson Bennett in front of other quarterbacks. I kind of feel like Lane might matter to him. Just for the future on what he wants to do with like some of that NIL money, because it's not going to look good if even if you have the money, but then like something happens and you don't play that player, that might come back to bite you. And there's been teams that, Lane has had some good offenses that have gone to play Georgia and they've gotten like stomped. So sometimes his offenses don't do that well against Georgia. So it'll be very interesting. But usually Tennessee only has a good couple of drives against Georgia, and you saw they almost beat Georgia this year. So it might be a little different, but I will want to see, the health of Ole Miss, because they've had some players banged up, and that might have been a look ahead game last week, but that was still a little concerning in my eyes.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this one shakes out. I want to see if Ole Miss is like, because I was worried about that Washington State game too. I was like, that should have never been that close. But they're still undefeated for whatever that's worth. And they do go into Georgia. The other matchup, you actually talked about 2 of the quarterbacks, is this Tennessee-Alabama game, where Joey Aguilar has came in from Appalachian State. I guess technically UCLA too, but we'll skip that. And he's looked like he never left Appalachian State because he's performed greatly with Tennessee this season. And then on the other side of that, we do have Ty Simpson, who's come in, was a really great dual threat guy in high school, and he has not been used that way at Alabama. He's been a pocket passer for the most part, and he's looked great at it. So I wanted to ask you, this is one of the bigger matchups in college football this week as well. And of course, it has to be asked, who do you think will come out on top? What are you looking for? It's at Alabama. Does that matter in the grand scheme of things? Just give me your thoughts on this matchup.
Yeah, I think that matters, especially for Alabama, because, Tennessee, the 100,000, all those liquored up, rednecks in Tennessee. And I think it's going to be interesting because I think Alabama could have very easily lost Missouri last week. Missouri just couldn't make enough plays.
Missouri's good.
My thing is, too, to be honest, Tennessee should have beaten Georgia. it came down to that 4th and I think 17. And
Yeah.
it just seems under Heupel, Tennessee just can't get over that hump. Like they're kind of like the Penn State and James Franklin. They'll get 9 or 10 wins, but there's that one game they can't get over the hump. Like, it's been either losing to the Gators or not being able to beat Georgia this year or not being able to beat Alabama or something like that. So he needs to, I think it's a big game for both coaches. DeBoer, obviously, he lost that first game to Florida State. He needs to really get, get the Alabama team going. I mean, he kind of has, but he's been able to beat Kirby, but he can't, beat Kirby and win Missouri last week and then fall to Tennessee, because this is a game that I didn't realize until I went to Tuscaloosa like how big of a deal that Alabama Tennessee game really is.
You know what's interesting? I wanted to ask you this too. Is Alabama's schedule after this really isn't that great? I mean, they play LSU and they play Oklahoma, but they also play South Carolina, who's been struggling a bit. They play Eastern Illinois, and then they end the game against Auburn. Now, we'll talk Auburn with Shane a little bit later. They've been kind of getting hosed through officiating. But let's just say for these purposes that Alabama loses this game against Tennessee. If they win out the rest of the way, do you think that they deserve a spot in the college football playoff?
Yes. So you're saying if they lose to Tennessee but win out, right?
Yes. Yep.
But because they'd have wins over Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri, I guess LSU, Oklahoma. Yeah, I guess you could say Auburn. And two, yeah, I think they'll be in because they already pushed the SEC teams, and the ACC is maybe only going to get one team in.
The ACC started out hot, and they have been struggle busing.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I don't know how long Virginia can last. SMU had a couple hard losses at the beginning of the season. So I think it's kind of a one bid league. The Big 12, maybe two. So, and then looking at the Big 10, it's probably 3, maybe 4. So the SEC is probably setting, they're probably going to get 4 or 5 in. So I think, Alabama, if they, obviously FSU isn't helping them, but it was the first game of the year. So I don't think too many people hold it against them.
Yeah, I could probably see that, especially with the Florida State one being that opening. I did want to ask you this too, though. Let's just I want to do a hypothetical here, talking college football playoffs. And I know this isn't going to be P4 related, so I'm sorry I'm switching back to some G6 stuff. But let's just say, for all intents and purposes, USF wins out, right? And then undefeated UNLV wins out. Do you think either of those two teams would receive an at-large bid, or do you think that the committee is just going to put one G6 team regardless? That's what I'm like, because I've been looking at it,
Well, I think USF, with how they played at the beginning of the year, beating Boise and beating Florida. I know Florida has been up and down, but still. What would UNLV's best win be?
That's so they played Boise this week, so let's just say for all intents and purposes that they defeat Boise. Their best win would depending on how UCLA ends up turning stuff around, it would probably be UCLA or Boise. Which makes
I think the problem with UNLV too is they're a lot like USF has been pretty dominant in a majority of their wins, where UNLV has to outscore teams because their defense is trash.
It's so bad. It's so
bad. I mean, but Calandria, their quarterback, he's legit, and Thomas is really good at running back.
Thank you.
I just don't think you can. Yeah, I don't think they could get in with an at-large.
Yeah, I'm just curious because Mullen has the name power to him, but I wasn't really sure how you thought that would work out. I'm going to end up asking Dan, who's actually in the blue room in a second to this question, but I wanted to hear your thoughts. I've been kind of questioning to see like what people think because I have it so in my head, an undefeated team should technically get in if it's like a good FBS. You know what I mean?
I think it depends too on the conferences. Like say the Big 12 only gets one, ACC only gets one. And it depends on the Big 10. Like right now, if I looked at the Big 10, I would say Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. I don't know anyone else.
Right.
Right now, I guess you could make the case for Washington or if Michigan beats Ohio State.
Washington hasn't looked bad, yeah.
Yeah, so which they should be ranked. I don't know how they're not ranked. Their only loss is to Ohio State, 20-6. So
great point, actually.
They should be ranked. And then the SEC, I mean, you're looking at Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Maybe
would you put LSU or like LSU? Maybe
LSU. So even at that, that's like it'd be really tough. You would have to hope that there's not that many 2-loss teams that have the good resume because I don't think UNLV would win the eye test. I don't think UNLV would win like if they if a hypothetical matchup with a lot of those SEC or Big Ten teams. They're not going to win like the statistical things, especially defensively. Like if you bought Score Watch, that's the thing. A lot of people aren't going to see them because they're a lot of their games are on the West Coast, and you know how a lot of these people do not
actually watch the games.
Yeah,
a little all too familiar with some people in the media who just like to box Score Watch and then give their opinions. Thankfully, we don't do that. So that's one thing I do love about us and the people we have on this show specifically. But yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because it was I'm very intrigued to see where people stand on that because I know a lot of the opinions of us are, not always the same. And I love to just explore that. But Brandon, before I get you out of here, brother, let everybody know where they can find you on your social media.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter /X at HeyB3. And then tomorrow night at 9, crossing our fingers that technology works, but we'll have the Haymaker show. I want to say that on straights, we started out the year 3-9, and now we're at 500, 14-14. Quite the comeback. Okay. So we're hoping to, and we would have hit 2 parlays. We hit the league winners, and the other parlay, Toledo, let us down. Even though they were up double digits, and in typical MAC fashion, you never know what's going to happen.
You gotta love MAC football, some action. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I'll talk to you soon. That is Brandon Haye. You can find him let me just retry that again because I just stumbled over my word. You can find Brandon on X/Twitter. I'm doing it again at Haye HAYEB. There's the B 3 on X/Twitter. Now I have my next guest in the blue room, the waiting room, whatever you want to call it. You can find him at Call DT on X/Twitter. Got that one right. You can find him also on a live show, Wake Up Call, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. He tends to run a little bit over, though, or you can find all of that stuff on Wake Up Call DT, the letters DT.com. It is my good friend, Dan Tortora. Dan, how are you doing today, my friend?
What's up, man? Back in the studio, little under the weather. Was in Charlotte, was in New York City, was gone for a week. Now I'm home, so good to be back here, but pulled triple duty. So we had a bunch of specials that aired last week for Wake Up Call. Plus we did fantasy football in the middle of the night on Sunday morning to make sure everybody had it. And I want to thank the people that were up with me at 12:30, 1 a.m. in the morning all over the country that were asking questions, and really appreciate that. A lot of new people too. And yeah, so we got to do that. And then ACC tip-off, I spoke with all 18 schools, all 18 coaches in men's basketball, bunch of student athletes. There's over 50 interviews that will come to you. Some of them have already aired. Some Syracuse stuff is already out there, but there's more to come. And yeah, and then I got to go to New York Comic-Con and interview 50% of the original Fantastic Four, and Paul Walter Hauser, which was crazy, and a really good opportunity to speak with Ruben Najera, who's a writer and also a Diamondback fan. So we got to connect on that, and hopefully some other things to come. So, and I got to see a bunch of stuff that nobody's seen yet, which is really, really cool, and describe that to people. And I got to have some conversation with Deborah Ann Wall, Bryce Dallas Howard, Joe Pantoliano, Charlie Cox. So they're definitely Chloe Bennett. Yeah. So it's been crazy, but you know, it rained in New York City and it's dirty in New York City. And I just believe that when it rains plus the dirty, the chances of getting sick when it rains in New York City are like 95%. So my allergies are bugging me. I apologize if I sound like a Kardashian in my nose, but I'm here to, and I'm just joking. I send my love and appreciation for the Kardashians, the 72 of them that are on television now. So, but, you know, they keep having babies. It's just happening. But yeah, so I feel like I'm about to lean into my Trump impression, but yes. So happy to be here. By the way, there's peace in the Middle East right now, which hasn't happened in over 2,000 years. So that's good too.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start, because I was going to ask you how the tip-off was, and then I forgot you went to the Comic-Con, and I'm a huge comic fan myself, so I love that, and just sci-fi and all that stuff myself. So I guess I'll start with the tip-off. How was that experience? Charlotte's a great city to be in. How was that experience for you?
It's awesome. You know, it's great. I've covered the ACC for, I think it's 13 years now. And so, well, let me think back. So it's 2025. Yeah, it's like 12 years, something like that. But no, I've had a great time, and speaking with the coaches has been phenomenal, and, you know, building relationships from events like this. So it's always good to see Brad Brownell and Earl Grant, and of course, Adrian Autry, and Coach Autry and I got to catch up on a bunch of different things, which was nice. Good to see JJ again. Good to see Donnie back for Syracuse. And, you know, I had a lot of conversations about God, you know, with Louisville. Those were some fantastic conversations, some of my favorites. So I want to thank them. And yeah, I mean, it was a great time. Damon Stoudemire, my childhood favorite player growing up, talking to him for the third year in a row was a lot of fun. And, you know, he said something that kind of stuck with me in an answer to one of my questions. He was like, we all know those people that we don't hear from forever, and then they call us up out of the blue because they're always just looking to get information. They're just looking to be nosy. So I found that was interesting that he said something like that, made me think. But no, I mean, the experience was great. I had a great time. I love Charlotte. For Super Powered Pop, I got to visit our studio partner, who's not too far outside of Charlotte, and Cornelius, which is Parker Banner, Kenton Wayne. So shout out to Matt Milburn. So yeah, I got to see him do sports and entertainment. And then I got to have my sports show on the air while I was doing entertainment in New York City. So I got to kind of live amidst all of it, which has been awesome. And dude, I had so much fun and expanded my career and challenged myself with Super Powered Pop in the entertainment world. And to know the people that we've gotten to have on the show that are actors and actresses and writers and illustrators, that's been so much fun. So, you know, I wanted to keep doing that, but it's 4 days long, and I was there for the 4. And I can honestly say this was probably the most well-rounded trip that I had. And I want to shout out Lisa and Dawn. Dawn, a friend of mine for many years, and Lisa, now a mutual friend between Dawn and I. She's been friends with Dawn forever. So it was great to experience it with them. I got to meet the actual Herbie from the Fantastic Four First Steps, and he bumped my fist. And one of my favorite pictures of all time is me and him having like a really cool in the moment. So yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, for the entertainment show, for people that don't know, I dabble in music, screenwriting, acting, and definitely storytelling in general. So there's a lot to Superpowered Pop, which I call our brother show. And I was happy to get to put it on display over these last few days. And
that's awesome, man. I'm so glad that you had a good time. I unfortunately got sick, but that's what happens. I mean,
New York City, man, it's the smell of weed and Subway, so it'll kill you. So
now you're back home, and actually that's perfect segue, because we'll end up seeing each other in a couple of days as the Syracuse Orange host the Pitt Panthers, and Pitt's going to have a new quarterback under center. And the true freshman, and he's looked good. I mean, he had the 2 interceptions against Florida State last week, but outside of that, he looked pretty good. Eli Holstein is now benched. It's a big ACC matchup, big conference matchup for Syracuse, and things are a little rough with the fan base right now after that loss against SMU regarding quarterback Ricky Collins. I just wanted to get your thoughts. Me and you have talked about this, a few times about, patience and negativity versus positivity, especially when it comes down to the quarterback position. And after all, we were there when media and fans wanted Steve Angeli benched midway through that UConn game. Now we're seeing kind of the same thing happen with Ricky. It's a little bit, different. Ricky has a different skill set than the offense he's playing in right now, because that was tailor-made for a Steve Angeli. Do you think that there should be more patience with Ricky going forward as he continues to grow? Because this is only going to be his 3rd start too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, do I think that people should give a man an opportunity to grow after having 2 starts in 2.5 years? Yeah, and Ricky's different. So there's a reason why Steve won the job, and there's a reason why they leaned on Steve. And that's no knock on Ricky. But there's a reason why Fran went and got another quarterback. There's a reason why he started that quarterback, even though Steve had less time in the system.
Right.
So we know Jeff Nixon likes to throw the ball. And I think he should use Ricky differently. On my social media and my YouTube channel, there will be my one-on-one with Jeff Nixon airing, which is 2 parts. And it will break down some of these things that I'm talking about. So I'll kind of give you a little tease with that. But I do think that Ricky is best served. I think the offense is best served if they RPO him. Yeah. If they put him in a run-pass option situation, backup quarterbacks tend to lean on their running backs and their tight end. He's got a great tight end in Dan Villari. Jeff agrees with me that he's an NFL tight end. And he's got, his son, Will Nixon, and he's got Yasin Willis. So I think that Ricky's ability to move swiftly on his feet and just, when he's looking down the field, there's just a way that his legs and his feet move when he's not even paying attention to what they're doing. And so there's just certain things that people have, and he has it. I think they should utilize the RPO. I think they should utilize the short yardage game, the checkdowns, and their tight end. I think that they should work systematically down the field, running the ball in short passes for now until he gets comfortable. It's my opinion, but I think it'll work. We saw it work a little bit against SMU late in the game. So that's where I would go if I was sheerly looking at what he's done, what I think he can be done, and to use him for his best skill set. I would prefer that Ricky does not throw 40 to 50 times a game. I know that that's Jeff Nixon's offense. I know that that was Cal McCord. I know that that is Steve Angeli. I don't think it's Ricky. I'm not knocking Ricky. I think that Ricky could be 30 to 35 passes a game, hopefully under 30 passes a game, and running the ball a little bit more and dumping it off to his backs. I'd love to see, Willis and Nixon have a mix of 10 carries with one, 15 with the other, and then maybe we see Ricky have, 8 rushes and maybe he throws 28 balls, right? So that's what I would like to see. It's what I would prefer to see. It's how I think the offense will move. I'm not the offensive coordinator. I'm not getting paid millions of dollars. I'm not Fran Brown. I've watched football for most of my life, and I think that would be the way to go. If I had to systematically make a decision, there's no smart coach in the world that can literally say, I have 2 different quarterbacks and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So right. I think they have to alter it a little bit, and that's not knocking Ricky. It's saying use him for what he's good at. Steve is not a guy that's going to give you a ton of RPO, but Ricky can. So use it to your advantage. Syracuse did it a long time ago with RJ Anderson and Troy Nunes. I think they should do something with Ricky that's a little bit different. I think it would work. And listen, if I'm wrong, could it look worse than the last 2 weeks? So,
right. I think that's a great point. I mean, we've talked about that too, where we think that is potentially where the offense could be heading now. It would be a testament to Coach Nixon's ability to coach. I guess I'll just keep it point blank if he's able to change that on the fly. No, listen, Syracuse fans are a little insane if they think that offense was going to change after a week or after 2 weeks, with such little time to prepare, with new personnel under center on the most important position, on the offense. It just doesn't work that way. There has to be time for growth. There has to be adaptation, not just for the players, but for the coaches too. So I think the bye helps with that. I think we're going to be seeing, I hope we see a different approach. And, like you said, backups do like to rely on the running backs and the tight ends. And so I did want to ask you a little bit about Dan Villari. Talking with pro scouts, they didn't have him as a guy in the NFL at the beginning of the season. But now, since his performance, he's been so consistent and good, I mean, frankly, this season, that he's now starting to catch the eyes of these pro scouts. So as somebody who's seen him, can you just talk about Dan's growth, not just like as a player, but as a man?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to get to know Dan over a bunch of years now, and him and I have a really close bond. So, somebody told him to call me Uncle Dan, which he has, which is weird for me. I don't think I'm old enough to be called Unc, but some people told me to embrace it. But yeah, I mean, Dan and I have spent a lot of time together, and speaking about the Lord, speaking about his faith journey, about who he is, about what he's been through, about the things that he maybe wasn't comfortable doing, and then had to get to a point where he was. He went to Michigan to play quarterback.
Yeah.
And then he came to Syracuse. Then they asked him to play tight end, but he wanted to be a quarterback. And then he played tight end. Then he got asked to be a quarterback. Then he got asked to be a tight end again. So, I mean, he's been through a lot. And, what I could say about Dan is his body. Now, I've covered the NFL for many years, an accredited member of the media in the NFL for over a decade, spent time around a bunch of teams in warmer weather, colder weather. I've been in all different parts. And I could tell you in my coverage of the NFL that he definitely has made his body fit what a tight end should look like. There's certain things that he's doing with his movement. There's certain things that he looks like physically. And, he's been one of the most reliable set of hands on the team. So I think with Dan growing, blossoming, challenging himself, showing that he can be multiple, and being somebody that multiple quarterbacks could trust, I think that his leadership that he has shown, I think his ability to ad lib, I think his selflessness and putting the team in front of himself has been huge, on top of what he's done with his body, on top of what he's done with some of his mechanics. And honestly, when I watched him in the fall practice, there was a couple passes that he had. One of them stuck out to me, and I can see it plain as day in my head, where I just said to myself, like, that's an NFL guy. And the last time that, well, I shouldn't say the last time, but when I said that about a player at Syracuse in basketball, Dion Waiters went to the basket and he missed a shot. He actually missed the shot. But when he went to the basket, the way that the physicality of how he went up and under and brought the ball back up, I just looked at him and I said, only NBA players can do that.
Yeah.
And I just saw it. And he didn't have to make the shot, and he didn't. So I think with Dan Villari, I just see it. And, I think he's going to be a guy that teams are going to trust. Listen, teams are carrying 2 or 3 guys now. So I think he's definitely going to have a place in this. And I see that Shane wrote Dion Waiters was awesome. Yes, he definitely was. But I think there's a lot to be said about what Dan is doing. And I will say this, I know we're talking about Syracuse, but I hope you ask me about overall college football, because I have succinct thoughts, but I have very clear thoughts. So.
Oh, I got some questions for you. One of them is a precursor to that, I guess. Kind of, yeah. It's a segue to something I'm going to ask you earlier, and you can kind of feel free to go into it. But obviously, James Franklin was fired at Penn State, and there's been a handful of other coaching vacancies that have already or coach firings that have already happened early this year at one of the press conferences for Syracuse, somebody asked Coach Fran Brown kind of if he's staying at Syracuse and, if Syracuse is a big enough program for him, in more or less words. I mean, I just want to ask you, do you think that's kind of appropriate for a guy just going into year 2 with a team and kind of a completely overhaul of a team, new quarterback, a lot of new position players as well. And I mean, do you think that's an appropriate question to be asked? And what were your thoughts on Fran Brown's answer to that question?
Do I think it's an appropriate question? No, I don't. And, I've been in enough of these rooms where it's going to happen. I had somebody asked me the question publicly and said, can you confirm that Fran Brown is leaving? So, I mean, listen, it's the world that we live in. And whenever a job opens up, I dealt with it with Mike Hopkins forever. A job would open up and people are like, oh, he's on the list. And he might have not even gotten talked to by that school. Right. Now, Brown said he's working at Syracuse right now and really doesn't need to talk about his potential candidacy. He told reporters that asking him about the issue was disrespectful, stating they hired me to come here and do a job to coach the team, and that's what I'm doing, And, I mean, listen, Fran's a real dude, and I would consider myself a real dude. Fran and I would prefer that we spend time talking in our own press conference that is away from all of this circus of sorts. It kind of feels like Welcome to Derry with It the Clown sometimes. And I just, I feel like my conversations with Fran are rooted in who he is and what he's about and what he's seeking to accomplish. You can copy and paste the questions that Fran gets asked. It's the same questions that Dino got asked when he went 10-3. It's the same questions that Doug Marrone got. I mean, I'm so used to people, pardon my French, shitting on a team and then pretending they love that team and then shitting on them again. And I mean, the reality of it all is everybody loves Fran. And then Fran starts losing. And now, people, their real stuff starts coming out, right? And they start trying to catch him in words and this, that, and whatever. He said in his intro press conference, he said, if you twist my words, I will never speak to you again. And listen, would I sit there and ask Fran that question? No. Now, if I'm sitting down and I'm hanging out with Fran and we're just having a time and we're having a talk and we're just meeting as friends, would I talk with him about kind of his sights and his thoughts and this and that? There's coaches that we've developed bonds over the years where we have open conversation. And there's some coaches that trust me so much, they don't even say off the record anymore. They just know that, there's certain things that I'm going to, keep to me. And I mean, I wasn't in the room because I was flying home, kind of happy I wasn't in the room because I'm used to this. And so I don't, some fans will call it hard-hitting questions in air quotes, that these are the hard-hitting questions. Is he leaving? And we need to know. And like the people that always want the drama. Is he staying? Is he leaving? Who's injured? If I'm a head coach, I'm not telling you who's injured. Okay? It benefits me in no way, shape, or form. If I'm a head coach, I'm not talking to you about my potential coaches that can leave and take head coaching jobs somewhere else. If I'm a head coach, I'm not telling you that I'm going to leave and go to another school in 3 weeks. If I'm a head coach, I am handling my business right now. Any of these people that say that they're quote unquote hard-hitting questions and the media that thinks they're so, watch the media people that ask the questions and watch how they smirk. Some people know that they're doing it to just stick a little needle under somebody's eye and they enjoy it. And people that enjoy poking other people with needles should seek a therapist. And so, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with therapy. It's just if you enjoy other people's pain, should probably talk to Dr. Finkelstein about it. But I mean, I can honestly tell you that if I'm Fran Brown and I'm getting asked that question in the middle of this season with Syracuse, I'm not going to have a response that you enjoy because I already know that if I respond with an attitude, you're going to say, well, he's testy. Could be that It's true. I mean, they're going to twist it whatever way they want to twist it.
Oh, yeah.
But this is why the mainstream media has lost the respect of so many people, because they only seek to manipulate, to cause drama, and to try and bait people into something. The questions of, are you leaving? Are you staying? Do you think you're going to get fired? Do you think you're good enough? I would challenge these people. If you were leaving a job and you were going to put in your 2 weeks notice, would you turn on a camera and a microphone and tell the world and your current boss, I'm leaving you in 3 weeks. I'm going to go take a job somewhere else across the street? You wouldn't do that. So why do you expect a coach to do that? You know, there's this idiocy of this. And if he doesn't answer it clearly, if he doesn't give you a clear no, then people are going to say that it's a yes. And he's not going to say yes because he's not stupid. So, I mean, what's Fran going to do in his future? I don't know. I'm not Fran. And anybody that claims to know doesn't know. Because even if Fran called me up right now and said, Dan, I saw you on the show tonight, and this is what I'm going to do, I still don't know if he sleeps on it and changes his mind.
Right.
So, you know, I know it's a long-winded answer, but you know how I feel about a lot of this stuff. I did not get into the media to be so different, but if telling the truth, caring about people, putting God first, and having morals and values makes me different, then shout out to being different. Those questions are never going to come out of my mouth, because only a complete moron would tell his current employer that he's leaving for another job. Or she.
Yeah. You're not wrong. That's why it's always just a weird. I always thought that was just a weird question that everybody, because it happens, you know, almost everywhere, right? You always see somebody ask a head coach when things are going rough if they're going to leave for greener pastures, or if they're doing good at a low-level program, if they're going to leave for a greener pasture. Sometimes the greener pasture is not there. Sometimes it is. But I don't think the coach has any obligation to let anybody know what he's thinking of doing. But that kind of segues a little bit to what I wanted to ask you, and that's regarding James Franklin and Penn State. Where do you think it was time for Penn State to make a move? I mean, they had back-to-back losses, but it was Penn State is a team that James Franklin has done an excellent job recruiting there in a very, very tough area to recruit, and in a conference that's very tough to recruit in against some of the other programs. And just what are your thoughts on that firing? Was it the right move, and what's next for Penn State?
Well, I would say to Penn State the same thing I would say to anybody. If you fire someone and you don't already have someone that you've spoken to that you feel really good about, was it the right move? And because the question is, who are you going to bring in?
Yeah.
The longer you wait, the more fans are going to get frustrated and upset. Now, I told you all at the beginning of the season, and I've told you for years, that the Big Ten has an unfair advantage, and Penn State typically never challenges themselves in non-conference play. This year was no different. They played unranked Nevada, whoop. They played FIU, great. They played FCS Villanova. I have no knock against any of those programs. I have a knock that beating those programs made them top 5 in the nation. Okay. Then they almost beat Oregon. I didn't know that was a real category. I didn't know there was win-losses and almost won. So there's a W category, there's an L, and there's an AW, the almost win. And apparently the almost wins only count in the Big Ten because there's a lot of almost in the Big Ten. But Ohio State is the only team in the Big Ten that has gotten an unfair advantage in the polls. They've gotten ballooned and they've been boosted when there's been no logical reasoning for it, but they back it up. At the end of the year, they back it up. Michigan doesn't back it up outside of one time in the last decade. And the time that they won, Jim Harbaugh was under investigation, and now he has a show cause penalty. So, I mean, how do you look at that championship and just regard it as a championship? How do you not see it as a championship that's in murky waters? And then you look at Penn State. James Franklin's here's some irony. I'm going to talk really slow for the people in the back. Here's some irony. James Franklin went 4-21 against the nation's top 10. Yet his team was ranked year in and year out in the nation's top 10. How are you considered one of the top 10 teams in the country when you've beaten 4 of them in 25 chances? Just think about that. Penn State had 3 wins against nada, and nada. Syracuse had 3 wins, and one of them was Clemson. So if we're playing simply by who they beat, you got Penn State in the top 7, and you don't have Syracuse in the top 45. I mean, you got to really honestly just break it down. And I understand that I'm asking people to be honest, and I'm asking them to put their bias away. But take the bias out of it. Indiana last year beat 11 unranked teams. And you know what the argument was? Well, they're better unranked teams than the unranked teams of the American. How do you know? Now, look at Indiana's rest of their season after beating Oregon this year. I give them props for beating Oregon. Are they 3rd in the country? No. And whoever in the media and the one coach that voted for them to be the number 1 team in America, they need to have a drug test and have a dog follow them around the office, because there's something wrong with someone that thinks Indiana is better than Ohio State, better than Miami, better than Texas A&M, better than Ole Miss. I mean, I can put Indiana at 5. Okay? I can put them at 5. And I'm not saying Kurt Cignetti hasn't done a good job. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they haven't won the games in front of them. But last year, 11 wins against unranked teams, 0 for 2 against ranked teams. Then you hop in to this year, 1 ranked win, and they're halfway through the season. Who do they play the rest of the season? They play 6 unranked teams, and 3 of those teams do not have a win in the Big Ten. So what can Indiana possibly show me if they go 12-0 with the next 6 games being against Maryland, Purdue, Wisconsin? Who cares? Michigan State, UCLA, blah. So to me, it's like, what's the value, right? Because you're going to tell me that it's either going to be Memphis or Navy or South Florida that's going to get in from the American. They can only have 1. But you know what South Florida has that Oregon doesn't have? 2 wins over the top 25. Do you know what South Florida has that Indiana doesn't have? 2 wins over the top 25. Memphis was the first team to go bowling this year, and they weren't ranked their entire road to 6-0 until they got to 6-0. So, I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the sheet, and I was listening to your prior conversation. Ohio State's going to get in because, let's face it, it's Ohio State. They get the same unfair advantage. I will note that they back it up. Indiana, unless they completely fart away the rest of their season, they have one of the I would love for Ricky Collins and Syracuse to have Indiana schedule for the next 6 games. Because if Indiana had to go play at Georgia Tech, at Miami, at Notre Dame, that's 0-3. And so, I mean, let's just be real. And you're going to tell me that you're going to take Miami or Georgia Tech. You're not going to take both. Miami and Georgia Tech deserve to be there. Ohio State deserves to be there. I think Oregon deserves to be there more than Indiana, but if it comes down to head-to-head, then you got to lean on Indiana. When I look at the SEC, and then when I look at the Big 12, Texas Tech, BYU, you know, they both have good records. I would say Texas Tech. And in the American, I named the 3 that are there. It's probably going to be South Florida or Memphis, but because the military academies never get respect. But if Navy goes 12-0, then, you know, we have to look at that. And then they go into the American Championship. But in the SEC, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee. Right now, I'd put all of those teams in. There's 6 of them. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. There's 6. Because so looking at those right now, I would put the 6. I'd want to put the 6 in. And I believe that. Now, I'm not sitting here as an SEC homer. See, what I do is I do my homework. And I pay attention. And I look at who people play. And I look at SEC football like I look at old Big East basketball. Just because you beat the crap out of each other in the best conference in the nation, you shouldn't be punished for that. There are 1 and potentially 2 loss SEC schools that are going to be better for me to see this year than BYU, than Indiana. And that's just the truth of it all. Ohio State beat Texas. That's great. But what else have they done? Ohio State has sleptwalked through the beginning of the season. And this is, I know Ohio State's going to be in. I'm guessing Miami's going to be in. But if I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, you got no loss or 1 loss. And you're telling me that these teams aren't worthy? And this is where I call BS. Because look at Indiana's crap schedule. The SEC has to beat the crap out of each other to get to where. Look at what Indiana has. What school? You tell me that Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Memphis, and South Florida. You tell me that they wouldn't enjoy playing Maryland, Purdue, Michigan State, UCLA for the rest of the year. I mean, you tell me any one of these teams that wouldn't love to play those games. So, it's hard for me because you asked me James Franklin. Now, when he lost to Northwestern, in my brain, I said, I'm not going to be surprised if he gets fired. It's less than 365 days from them making it to the only college football playoff that they've ever been to. They won the game. It was his 100th win, and I was there. Now, am I surprised that they fired him? No, because they lost to 2 unranked teams, and he's 4-21 against the nation's top 10. But Penn State last year was ranked in the top 10. This year was ranked in the top 3, top 2. They were in the top 2. They were considered 2 in the nation. And by the way, what did Illinois do to get themselves? Why are the coaches still ranking Illinois? What in the Sam Howell has Illinois done of any merit to be in this thing? And then they say, well, Dan, Indiana has 2 wins against the nation's top 10 because they beat Oregon and Illinois. You and I both know one of those teams shouldn't have been ranked in the top 40, let alone 9. Illinois was ranked 9th in the country and lost by 53 points. That was obviously a mistake by the committee, but again, an unfair bias. The media, because they're in the Big Ten. If Illinois was in the ACC, they wouldn't have been 9. If they're in the American,
no way.
they wouldn't have been ranked. If they were in the Big 12, they wouldn't have been ranked. So, listen. What I'm really trying to say here, am I surprised that James Franklin got fired? No, because that's the world we live in. Am I going to be happy for his firing? No. I respect him as a recruiter. He got people to go to that team when they were under a penalty. They had limited scholarships. They had to pay like $60 million in the Jerry Sandusky thing that went on. That giant cloud, he out-recruited Syracuse at a time where Penn State had a giant black eye. I've gotten to be around him. I've gotten to hear him speak. I respect him. It's not his fault that there's unfair rankings in the polls. But am I surprised he got fired? No, because of the world we live in. But I want somebody to come here with logical, factual information to tell me that Texas A&M and Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee don't all have a path to the college football playoff, and why Indiana is playing 3 preschools and 3 candy shops for the rest of the season, and that they're going to make it by beating up on children and stealing their candy.
That's a great point, and I'm very curious that you got to answer what I was going to ask, because I'm very curious to see how that plays out too. I think you hit the nail on the head where it's, the Big Ten. I mean, outside of a couple schools, they don't really play too great of a conference schedule and a non-conference schedule. So it's tough when you see them ranked so high, and then when they lose these games to their unranked conference opponents that we know aren't good, it kind of turns the glasses from rose-colored to, oh, wait, I can see clearly now things probably shouldn't be the way that they're being perceived as. Now, Dan, we did run over our time quite a bit that I normally have you for, but I love talking to you, man. Always a pleasure. Before I let you go, though, let everybody know where they can find you at on your social media and your show.
Yeah, so we are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're worldwide. YouTube.com and Facebook.com are both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. We always go past 11 because under promise, over deliver. And Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. And of course, everything is on wakeupcalldt.com. And I'm going to tell you all on social media to check out at Superpowered Pop for all my comic book fans and all that good stuff. So definitely go and check that out. But yeah, man, I could go on this ranking thing all day because I don't understand. And like, how do you get into the, like, how do these 62 people get into the AP? Because like, I actually look at this and care, and I look at head to head, and I look at, who's doing what and in what conference. Like if you win 70-7 and it's against Citadel, I'm not moving you up. You know what I mean? And then, but I mean, Georgia Tech, for goodness sakes, if they leave Georgia Tech out of this thing, like,
that'll be a shame because Georgia Tech's been playing amazing.
I don't even care if they're 12.
Right.
Just put them in.
Right.
Just let them in. But like Indiana, do I think they're going to lose another game? No, I don't. And that's going to, and just look at like that 12-0 is going to be like snooze through 9 games, like 10 games. And then maybe 2 of them were like, okay, right? The Oregon win is fantastic. I will never take that away from them. But besides beating Oregon, what have you done? It's the same as last year. Like what are they? Everyone, oh my gosh, they're so good. Why? Why are they? You know what? This is what I want Fran to do. Fran, next year, I want you to talk to the ACC and I want you to look at all the bottom feeders from this year. And I want you to schedule the bottom feeders in the 9 games. I want you to play like the worst of the worst. I want you to play the teams that have coaching changes and all that stuff, the ones that lose their quarterbacks to the transfer portal. And I want you to play Villanova, and I want you to play Colgate again, and I want you to play, I don't know, Dartmouth. And let's just call it a day. And I'm not trying to disrespect any of these schools, but I'm just saying, why don't everybody play the Penn State game and just sleep through most of it or play the Indiana game? All I'm saying is, how can you sit here and say Indiana is like a really, really good team when Miami's challenged themselves? Now, Indiana challenged themselves in 1 game, but like, you tell me you're going to pick Indiana over Oregon, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia, Texas Tech, Miami. Really? You're going to pick Indiana over those teams? So like if we go into this thing and Indiana's like the 5 seed, you know, then someone's going to have to hold me back. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I'll be there to do that for you, brother. And hopefully we can hold each other back with a nice Syracuse win over Pitt at home. That would be great to see. Wouldn't mind a Pitt win too, but I would like to see Syracuse win. It would make coverage a lot smoother, and hopefully we don't hear any more idiotic questions in the pressers. But Dan, thank you so much for coming on as always, brother. I can't wait to see you again this weekend, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for letting me have a moment or two to just kind of question the fantasy world that people, maybe New York Comic-Con has spilled over into the AP and the coaches poll because we're living in a fantasy world. This is science fiction. So, I mean, I don't know. If Thanos has a gauntlet, then Indiana's the best team in the country. I have no idea what we're talking about anymore.
I'll catch you later, brother. I appreciate you so much, man.
Hey, man. Take care. I love you, Indiana. Please no.
That is Dan Tortora of the Wake Up Call DT. You can find him at Call DT on X/Twitter. Love Dan and talking some Syracuse football. We have another guest in the blue room, green room, back room, side room. You love him, you know him. It is Shane Barrett. Shane, how you doing, bro?
I'm great, man, but I need you to change up your schedule so I don't have to follow DT because that's a hard follow. I love listening to him.
Yeah. Before we get into Auburn, I kind of wanted to ask you the same question I've been asking them. Like, how do you feel this college playoff ends up shaking out? Do you think there's going to be some undeserved teams? Do you think there could be 2 G6, G5, whatever we're calling them now, bids, or do you think it's going to be, the one G6 and the at-larges are going to go primarily to like SEC, Big Ten?
That's a good question. Because Auburn's been so bad, I haven't necessarily thought about it. I don't know. I think I kind of like DT's point where like if you have 2 teams from the G6 or G5, whatever, go 12-0 and meet in the conference championship, and it's a close game, I wouldn't hate putting 2 of them in. Now, the problem with that is, like, it almost feels like the NCAA basketball tournament where you've got the automatic bids for the conference winners, and you've got a 15 seed playing a 2 seed, and the 15 seed gets smoked every year.
Right.
And obviously there's upsets within that too, but there's some good G6 teams this year. And I think like actual teams that can stand out. They're not like, no shade to Boise State, but look at the fall off that they've had without Genty. Like these these G6 teams don't have that Heisman contender level player that's propping them up and carrying them through even weaker schedules. Like they're 6-0, 5-1, and have a good football teams.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Tulane, Memphis, Navy. I was actually just updating my top 25 or pre-updating my top 25 for you.
USF too.
USF,
man. They
yeah.
had a couple ranked wins. I mean, UNLV is undefeated. I think there's been a couple good G6 teams.
Did you know that Dan Mullen was the head coach of UNLV? Because I just learned that today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's a great
Like,
head coach, man. Like,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense why they're undefeated.
Yeah,
So.
and like I don't know if his name gives the pull to UNLV, like, oh well, Dan Mullen's coaching them, maybe, they get a little leeway, but it's just fascinating to see. And to this point too, the SEC kind of beats up on each other. And a good point, I guess that's a good segue into seeing how Auburn's been, because Auburn's been playing. I mean, man, between like the officiating and like everything else that's just been happening to Auburn the past couple weeks, as a fan, I don't even know how you're feeling. So please enlighten me and everybody else as to what the past couple weeks have been like for Auburn Tiger fans.
I think the best way to describe it is they're bipolar, because like our defense has been phenomenal. Our defense has kept us in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
And our offense has been absolutely, to quote my cousin, hot dog water. And if you don't know who my cousin is, it's Jake Crane from Crane & Company. It's been hot dog water. It's been bad. And the thing and I've been listening to Locked on Auburn, auburnsports.com, The Barn, like all the Auburn podcasts, and they're all saying the same thing, and I agree with them. The problem is that our defense looks great and our offense looks that bad, and Hugh Freeze is an offensive coach. We talked about it last week, I think.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago. And it's like, how are you a self-proclaimed offensive guru who over the last 10 SEC games or 11 SEC games has averaged less than 20 points? And that includes the 43-41 or whatever the final score was, 4 overtime game against Texas A&M. Other than that, they've not cracked 20 points in SEC play. And it is so bad. But then, and I'm going to shout out myself a little bit here, you have players committing to Auburn. Shadarius Tootle committed to Auburn, flipped to Georgia back in June, and then flipped back to Auburn today. And his brother, I think, is playing at a community college right now, is also committing to Auburn. Now, they're both on the defensive side, so, like, I get it. You want to play for DJ Durkin. But even with that, and, like, the just general air around the program right now is like Hugh Freeze has to win this week. If he doesn't win and the offense looks the same, he's out. But if he wins, then that sets up the rest of the season to finish the season 8-4. If some miracle happens and he wins out, he goes 9-3, and it's like you can't fire him for that. But I don't see a switch getting flipped offensively for that to happen. And that's what really concerns me is like, if things go the opposite direction, it could be worse than 6-6. Like we easily could lose to Missouri. Kentucky and Arkansas are gettable. We'll lose to Vandy. Mercer's a win, and then we lose to Bama. And I think I didn't do the math in my head that fast, but that's what Missouri, Vandy, Bama. So that's what I said, right?
Missouri. Yes.
So it would be 6-6.
Yeah.
So it would be 6-6. But that's all he's done since he's been here. And like it's year 3, and the problem is the talent is there. But
yeah, you guys have studs.
NFL caliber wide receivers.
Yeah.
Offensive linemen that are going to get drafted into the NFL. Jeremiah Cobb has looked great this year. And for some reason, after he gets 22 carries, Hugh says, let's go a different direction at running back. And it's like, well, and now that direction is off the team. Like,
yeah,
Damari Alston
what happened with that?
Left the team. So I want to make sure anybody listening knows that this is just what I've heard. I do not have any hard committed facts yet. But from what I have gathered, Damari Alston went to Hugh and said, hey, I want a red shirt, and I think transfer, because he had only played in 4 games because of his injury. Hugh didn't like that, so he said, you're gone. Like, you're off the team. And thanks, DT. Love you too.
Thanks, DT.
But the part that bothers me or scares me, especially like with this Missouri game going forward, is that multiple players came out on social media and in support of Damari Alston. So I don't know what actually happened, but from what I can tell, he was a stand-up guy. He was a leader on the team. It wasn't a grades thing. It wasn't a behavior thing. I legitimately think he went to Hugh and asked for a red shirt to consider to give him another year of eligibility.
Right.
And Hugh said no. And I don't know if it was, hey, I want to redshirt and transfer, or left the door open to come back to Auburn next year. I don't know. But the player reaction from other players on the team currently makes me like, if they've sold on Hugh as a team, it could get ugly against Missouri, and then he's gone.
That's what I was gonna ask you, man, because like we've talked about how many good players Auburn has on offense too, and Hugh being the offensive guy, seeing that type of unit struggle with the struggles they've had is insane. Back to back 10 point. Like I know Georgia's a tough team to play. Okay, I know.
And we got screwed by the refs. Like, I'm not getting like
right.
But you and I've talked about that. Like, I don't want to lean on that. Like, yes, that's a huge factor. Right. But you're an offensive guy. You got to score more than 10 points.
Right, exactly. And that's back-to-back games now against ranked opponents. Now, Missouri comes in another ranked opponent. You know, granted, this time they're, just outside the top 15. But Missouri played, Alabama good last week. They theoretically could have won that game if things went a little bit differently. Yep. And so it's not any it's not a walk in the park. And we talked about Hugh. We just talked about Hugh potentially going 6-6, maybe 7-5. Who knows? That might not be good enough to keep him again, or keep him there. Not again. Sorry, keep him there. And now, do you think that there's any chance he actually gets fired? And if he does get fired, who would your top options be in that case?
So again, everything I'm hearing is that unless he goes on some miracle run here and goes 8-4 or 9-3 somehow, he's a dead man walking, basically. And again, if from what I've heard, if he does not beat Missouri or it's a close loss, he's gone after this week.
That gets spicy.
So to answer the other part of your question, I've got a list. And I'll rank this from like crazy. So do you want my craziest take on this? I texted my friend, my best friend.
Give me it.
Okay, so this is my absolute off the wall crazy take. But Auburn goes and hires Ed Orgeron. Okay.
Okay.
On the idea that it's a 2 to 3 year rental is what I said.
Right.
And in that he hires either, because he's a defensive guy, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So he goes in, hires a hotshot OC or a hotshot DC underneath him. And then whichever one they hire as the up and coming guy, that's your coach in waiting. And then on the other side of the ball, you hire a veteran offensive or defensive coordinator who's got maybe even has head coaching experience, but is towards the end of their career and just kind of coaching because they love to coach. And basically you build the program in 2 to 3 years with the idea that whoever the hot shot is going to replace Ed O after 2 or 3 years. It's off the wall, but that was what came to me the other day because
I don't even hate that.
Here's the thing. When Ed O took over at LSU, it was 2-3 years, and then they won the national championship. And that was with Burrow.
Quick, yeah.
Burrow had transferred in from Ohio State. They had a bona fide set of wide receivers. They had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back, and they had studs on defense. Auburn's in the same position right now. If you look at it, Auburn is in the same position. And so that's kind of why my brain went to that like drastic of a scenario. But if we're not on crazy pills, my pipe dream was either Dan Lanning or Marcus Freeman. But I don't think either one of those is actually going to happen.
Right.
I would sell my soul to have Marcus Freeman, but I don't think that's going to happen. Kurt Cignetti, I know, is on the list. Some people have even talked about James Franklin. And I don't necessarily love the Franklin, but I see why, because like he's won. And that's what Auburn needs to do right now is just freaking win. And so I can see the case for that. But then like the actual list of guys that I want that aren't total pipe dreams, Brent Key, Clark Lee, Kenny Dillingham, John Sumrall, and Rhett Lashley. And there's a bunch of people in Auburn who are like, we don't want Rhett Lashley. Like, we're kind of tired of hiring the guys that have former Auburn ties and are even just tied to Gus in any way. And my counterpoint to that, specifically for Lashley, was I think Lashley, outside of what he did at Auburn, is a good coach. And what he's done at SMU is the proof of concept for that.
Yeah, he's looked great there.
So, and they've had a tough go of it this year, but they're still, I think, 4-2, if I remember. Hold up, I got it pulled up. Yeah, they're still
had
4-2.
Like two close losses. Like one was Baylor.
One was Baylor. TCU? Yeah. Hold on, let me double check that. They lost by 11 to TCU, but it was at TCU, and then they lost by 3 to Baylor.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are two top 25 teams too. I think
they're good.
Like Baylor's good.
Baylor's good. Yeah, Baylor is good, man.
And Auburn beat Baylor. That's the frustrating part about all of this. Is like we saw it in week 1, man. Like you had it. You took what the defense gave you. You ran Jackson Arnold like his life depended on it. Both Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb had 15 or 16 carries each. The passing game wasn't there, but it doesn't matter because you won.
Right. That's what's going to be. That's why I'm like, as an Auburn fan, I would be so upset because you know it's a good team. You know it's a stacked team right now. Yeah. And the defense is playing so good that it's like keeping a bad offense. And I can't even say bad offense because all the players on the offense are good. Like, they're not bad players. It's not the concepts just aren't working.
Yeah.
The play calling is not working the way that it should. And I think again, that's like.
And there's this dichotomy again in the Auburn like chats is like, is it just the play calling? Is it the play calling and Jackson? Is it just Jackson? Like, what is it? And honestly, like, I think, and that's the other part about Hugh that just drives me absolutely insane is like he will not switch personnel. Like last year, you and I talked about it a couple times. I put it in the articles. Like you had to move on from Peyton Thorne, and you didn't. I lost you for a second. I'm making sure it's you and not me.
Up there. Yes. No, we're good. I do not know what happened there. We're back.
Okay. But Peyton Thorne, and again, now, like looking at it now with the glasses I have on for this season, like
I might not have.
I hated on Peyton Thorne. Like I hated that dude. He was bad. But now I'm like, was it all your fault? I don't know. But and then like Xavier Chaplin, he looked great. He had one false start, and I don't think it was totally on him. I think there was a couple other factors in it, but he turned it around real quick. Right. Preston Howard, I don't know why we keep throwing to Preston Howard. And I know Brendan Frazier got hurt. But it's like, dude, I think Preston Howard has more drops than catches this year, and he hasn't been thrown to that much.
That's not good.
And I don't know. It's just Hugh's lack of like he doesn't want to make the personnel changes. And it's like make the change and see what happens. If it doesn't work, then you can go back to the old way.
Right.
But if you do it and you don't give it time to actually develop and play out, then we don't actually know what we have outside of who's currently been playing.
Yeah, and I think if he doesn't make a change like that, he's kind of setting himself to be like just dead in the water. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you can, because we did talk about Peyton Thorne and how he struggled, pretty mightily, and then that transferred over to the Shrine Bowl, and unfortunately, it hasn't really worked out for him past his collegiate career. But now that we're seeing the same kind of things happen with Jackson Arnold, you're like, okay, let me take a step back. Is that really him? And then you start looking at the rest of the offense and seeing all these other guys starting to struggle. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Thing I will give Jackson Arnold credit for, at least me personally, from what I've watched and what I've seen, he has improved on little things here or there. And I don't like, it's not super consistent, but it's been different than what he's tried before. And I still don't know why he can't put any touch on a deep ball. I don't get it. But if he does, like, good Lord, we've scored at least 3 more touchdowns this year.
Oh, dude, that's so rough. Just missing on a deep connection is brutal.
Like, especially one where the receiver like is able to get his hands on it, but it's so far out of reach, like he can't pull it in. So
those are the toughest. I wanted to ask you too, like, so going into this game, obviously it's a massive game. It could be what defines Hugh Freeze's 2025 and Auburn season, to be honest with you. How do you think the contest ends up playing out at the end of the day?
That's a really good question. There's so much going into this game that I'm like, I have no idea. Like, at Auburn somehow opened, I think, as a 1.5 or a 2.5 point favorite.
I think so, yeah.
It has since flipped to Missouri, I think, minus 1.5. I think today it flipped to that. And I could see it being 17-13 Auburn. I could see it being 41-10 Missouri. like I could see
that would be so brutal.
The wheels falling off because the players are done with Hugh. And that's my biggest concern of what could potentially happen this weekend, is that especially after the last 3 weeks, after Damari getting removed from the team and the offense having no accountability, especially Hugh, like, the defense is just like, why are we doing this? Like,
right.
Why are we trying so hard when none of the other side of the ball is keeping up with their end of the bargain? And so I don't know. Last week was our best shot to really turn it around, because we had 2 weeks with the bye week. We had Georgia at home, retiring Cam Newton's jersey, and now it's Missouri off of a Georgia loss where we got screwed by the refs, and
that's still insane.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna go 17-13 Auburn's my final prediction, and I think that's good enough to keep Hugh his job for at least 1 more week.
It'll be interesting to see, and I know I got you kind of late, so I apologize. I didn't want to get your quick thoughts on this. If Freeze does end up getting fired, how do you think that ripple effect plays out in the locker room in terms of like guys trying to transfer out or players decommitting?
That's my biggest concern. Is what's better for roster retention right now? Is it keeping Hugh, or is it letting him go now so we can start to build the vision of who's coming in, right, what it's going to be? And the new transfer rules going into effect, I think, really help. Yeah. But still, it's like, good Lord. Like Cam Coleman's gone, I think, if things don't turn around. If he stays, Perry and Malcolm are both probably gone. Defensive guys like Jay Crawford could be gone. Like, it could be a mass exodus out of Auburn. But I'm hoping either we turn it around and you can keep these guys, or they make the decision quick and they find somebody that is going to come in and get these kids to stay. Because if they all stay, or if a majority of them stay, like, the talent is there for Auburn to be good.
Right.
Like, it's there. Like, Hugh's first year, it was not there because Harsin, I think Harsin lifted instead of recruiting. And before that, like, I loved Gus for a while, but then it ran into he wasn't recruiting offensive linemen and he wasn't developing players, so they never got better as he was with them. And so Hugh inherited a dumpster fire. Well, whoever comes in after Hugh, even with the transfer portal, there still should be a solid enough core, and you can bring in your guys from wherever you're coming from if they're good enough. Like, there still should be a good enough core that going forward, Auburn doesn't have to take 3 years to rebuild this thing like you did.
Right.
And that's what I think ultimately that's what's so frustrating is, like, this was supposed to be the year that we saw the proof of concept with Hugh on offense because the talent was there. Everything was supposed to be there. And do you like my clapping, by the way?
I do.
But everything was supposed to be there, and it offensively, it's just been garbage.
Yeah, it's been very. It's been. I mean, I'll be honest. It's been disappointing to see. I know a lot of that doesn't help. I know we didn't want to hash in on the refs costing guys some games, but they definitely played a major role in the past 2 losses. I mean, the one on the goal line last week, that was kind of insane. How the ball's getting hit at the goal line. I mean, he still has. To me, that's a touchdown.
Like, here's my desk. The ball has to. The nose of the ball has to touch it, and that's a touchdown. I think that happened.
Yeah.
But then it goes to the clapping incident. Like, he called timeout.
That was utter BS. Honestly,
he
that was
called
insane.
timeout, and they didn't charge him a timeout, and they didn't give him a delay of game. I'm like, how?
No, that was insane. I don't know how that got got away with that.
The target, like, they called targeting on Kay and Lee, and then later in the game, Preston Howard gets hit worse.
Nothing.
And they didn't call it. I'm just like, what? Like,
that was insane. I thought I was going crazy watching the game because, like, I'm not a fan of either team. I'm just like, okay, like, what is this crazy bias? Because there's clearly a bias going on in terms of the officiating in this game. Yeah. And that was absurd. I know we don't like to talk about the refs, like, because we don't, at the end of the day, we don't try to blame them, but they definitely played a role last week and even the week before that. So, I mean, as an Auburn fan, that's got to be tough, but hopefully we see something different with them this week. But Shane, I don't want to keep you holding because I did keep you a lot longer than I normally do, so I apologize for that.
You might have to apologize to my wife because it is technically our date night. But
oh no, I'm very sorry.
She's being patient.
I appreciate her patience. And before we let you go, brother, just let everybody know where they can find you at on your social media.
You guys can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at FFShaneB. All of my league winners articles will be there. And you can see my scorching Auburn tweets. And if you have, I don't do it as much just because I don't have the time, but, like, if you have fantasy football questions, that's what the Twitter account was created for. So feel free to ask me advice. It may take me a minute to get back to you, but I'm happy to help.
And I'm happy to have you on the show helping me out, man.
Thanks,
thank
man.
you so much for coming on, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. See you
later. That was Shane Barry. You can find him at FFShaneB on Twitter /X, whatever you would like to call it. Before I do get out of here, I did want to highlight 2 matchups that are important for the league winners. That first one is going to be the Delaware Blue Hens take on Jacksonville State on Wednesday. The Conference USA schedule showing its face once again as the Blue Hens do travel to Jacksonville State for that matchup. Photographer Stephen Bernard on location for that one. Shout out to my man Stephen. I appreciate you, my friend. Excuse me. Nick Mitakuchi last week against Western Kentucky. We talked about it a little bit with Brandon at the very beginning of the show. He did have multiple turnovers that ended up costing the game for the Blue Hens against Western Kentucky. But Mitakuchi's been playing great other than that. I mean, the turnovers, he normally doesn't have those in game. And it's just seeing the way he performed after those turnovers and just bounced back very quickly. At the end of the day, he did put Delaware in a position to tie the game up and potentially take it to overtime. The field goal was missed against Jacksonville State, though. It's going to be very interesting to see how that game unfolds because Jack State loves to control the ball with Cam Cook, who is the nation's leading receiver right now at running back. He's a monster with the ball, averages over 4 yards per contact. 4 yards yards after contact per attempt. I'm sorry, it took me a little bit to spill that one out. Jack State wants to control time of possession in this matchup. They want to be able to shorten possessions for the Delaware Blue Hens, who have a pretty great offense, to be honest. Their first year in the FBS, coming over from the FCS, and now they're in Conference USA. So it's great to see them performing well. The second game I want to highlight is our California Golden Bears hosting the North Carolina Tar Heels. That is a Friday night. We will also have Stephen Bernard there. Again, shout out to Stephen, man. Got to love him. Make sure you guys are following at SB Media Prod, PROD on Instagram. Sorry for stumbling through that. Stephen does a great job for us there. It could be Bill Belichick's potential last game at UNC. There's a lot of talk about a potential buyout there with Belichick and the Tar Heels. Meanwhile, Justin Wilcox has to show that he can win and win ACC games. He has to show he can win conference games. He has to show he can just win games against opponents he's supposed to beat. That's been a challenge for Wilcox, but they do have Jaron Cave, Sungabula Tele, true freshman at quarterback. He's looked fantastic. Mason Minnie, tight end, has also looked fantastic. Defensive side of the ball for California, of course, is Kedu Luave, the upperclassman linebacker who looks fantastic, played alongside Teddy Buchanan last year. In that dynamic duo, they looked great. And now Luke Farrelly and Kedu Luave are now the new dynamic duo at linebacker for that linebacker tandem for the University of California. For UNC, I'm very curious to see if Thad Dixon on defense can force Sungabula Tele to make some mistakes. He is probably one of the best players on that Tar Heels team right now. I also spoke to him at the ACC kickoff this July. Really big fan of Thad Dixon. Hopefully continues to do great things. But that game's going to be interesting with all the rumors around Belichick, players coming out, recruits coming out saying they're sticking with the team. UNC had a statement itself talking about Bill Belichick staying with the team. It's very interesting to have happen in a guy's first year for a program that wasn't necessarily great in 2024. Now, nobody expected UNC to be this bad, I guess we'll say, in 2025, considering who's the head coach. But there's a lot of changes, man. I'm not a huge, as a Jets fan, as you guys can clearly see by the rest of my room here. Love that camera. I am a Jets fan. I had to deal with Belichick a long time. My animosity to him is non-existent because I'm, an adult. But at the same time, I'm not a Bill Belichick homer, I guess I'll say. With that in mind, it does take time, especially going from the NFL to college football and vice versa. I mean, how many college football coaches have we seen fail at the NFL level? A lot of them. Some great ones, too, notably Nick Saban. And he's not the only one. Urban Meyer, another one with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Saban with the Dolphins. So it does happen. And so the reverse of that happening is potentially in effect with Bill Belichick and the UNC Tar Heels. It's going to be interesting to see how that continues to develop going forward. And I do have some other comments here from Wake Up Call DT. Shout out to Dan Tortora. Memphis first team to be bowl eligible at 6-0. That is correct. And that is the American Conference. A lot of people talk about the American Conference. No one wants to show them love, but the American Conference is one of the better, if not the best, G6 conference in college football. And then we have Dan again. South Florida played 3 top 25 teams in non-conference play and went 2-1. Only lost to Miami, who is arguably number 1 in the nation. I mean, it's hard to disagree with that, to be honest with you. Nobody expected USF to beat Boise State. And Florida has been up and down, but they were still a ranked team. They're still an SEC team at the end of the day. The talent level is supposed to be different, and it wasn't a fluke victory for the Bulls. Now, they did lose to Miami, but Miami might be an upper echelon team, another tier ahead. And the Bulls might not be there yet, but they could be by season's end. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. Now, for everybody listening at home, please making sure you are liking the video you're watching, making sure you shoot a comment. I do get to the comments even after the fact. 24, 48 hours, I will get back to you without question. And then above all else, please share the video, whether you're on Twitter, Facebook, or even on YouTube. Share it to your social media feeds. That helps the channel grow, helps me a lot, and it also helps the staff and the other guests that we have on this show get them more exposure, because at the end of the day, it is about exposure for everybody, not just myself. Because let's face it, I do not care too much one way or the other, but I do appreciate the hard work of everybody who comes on, and I do want them to be appreciated in that fashion. Now, if you're done listening to that grand spiel, my name is Thomas Christopher, and I think that about sums it up. So until next time, I appreciate all of you, and you take care.
Don't just make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same.